Welcome to the Pro-2-Pro podcast, where we explore the stories and strategies of successful entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Keith Hanenian, and in each episode, I'll be sitting down with a different guest to learn about their journey, their challenges, and their insights into building a successful business. As a lawyer who works with industry leaders, I've seen firsthand the passion and drive that it takes to turn an idea into a thriving enterprise. And in this podcast, I want to share those stories with you, our viewers and listeners. Whether you're an inspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or just someone who loves a good success story, you'll find something to inspire and inform you in each episode. So sit back, relax, and join us as we dive into the world of entrepreneurship and discover the insights that can help you succeed in your own business. Welcome everybody to another edition of Pro-2-Pro. I am here behind the scenes with Cameron, who's the owner of Kanvis Media. Cameron, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Keith. I'm glad to be here.
For our folks that are watching and listening, Cameron is our videographer, but he's more than that. He's become a friend, and he is a driving force behind our content creation and helping us build Pro-2-Pro. And I'm glad that you decided to come on the podcast as we kind of do a behind the scenes with some of our people that are helping us put together this podcast. But you also fall into a group of young, aspiring entrepreneurs and business owners as well, which of course is part of our whole dynamic at Pro-2-Pro. So thanks for joining us.
It's an honor to be here. I didn't think I was going to be on an episode, so it's great.
Yeah, and you brought Alan with you, who's going to be filming some content, which is great. We got Jeremiah, who's running the podcast, and even have my daughter behind me, who's there with the dogs to give us support too. So it's going to be a good time today. So I'm looking forward to it.
100%.
So let's talk a little bit about you. You're a young guy. You own your own business. I've seen your work product. The people who have watched the podcast and have seen my YouTube channel see what great work you do. Tell me a little bit about you and how you got into this business.
Yeah. Thanksgiving at my grandfather's house, probably 8-9 years ago, my mom gave me one of her old cameras. So I'm in college at this time playing soccer. So photography isn't something on my mind. But the camera was like, okay, it's a real camera, something not just like a little digital camera. So I go back to school, sits in my dorm room for like a whole semester. And then I saw a cool picture on Instagram that was like, how did you take this picture? And the person that took the picture, I used to play soccer with. So thinking back on it now, it's like everything connects. And it was a former teammate. So I asked him, what camera did you use to take this picture? And it was the same one that my mom gave me.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm like, okay, I can do the same thing then. I have the camera. So he walked me through the settings I needed to set the camera on to be able to accomplish that look. So I went out and tried, it didn't work. Then I went out, tried again, didn't work. And then I realized, okay, I need a tripod to keep the camera steady to create that image. And ever since then, I was just hooked. It was fun. It was something that if I was bored, I could go out and shoot. And it opened up my eyes to where I saw everything around me in a new way. I could show what's around me in a higher quality, in a unique way that I just didn't look at it before.
So you were going to college and you're playing soccer, okay? Did you have at any point in time in college or maybe growing up where you aspired to be a business owner, where you would actually be running your own business or being independent and doing your own thing versus working for the man or working for somebody else?
Well, growing up, it was my dad played pro soccer. So being a pro soccer player was the only thing that was ever on my mind. Being a pro soccer player, being a chef, or, doing something like on TV. Those are the only things that, like, I never thought to myself, I'm going to work a normal job. That just never was a thing for me. But when I got to college, my grandma was like, hey, you got to start working now. I was like a junior or sophomore in college. And I was like, it felt weird. Like I didn't like the fact that I had to do that. But my first job was at Publix, right next to the university. So I would go to soccer practice in the morning. We'd have our lifts, go to class, and then I would work at Publix at night. And I think that was a great blessing because I learned the corporate world. I learned how to interact with people and customer service. So I think those are just good stepping stones. And then after I worked at a spa. But during that whole time, I was getting into photography. And 1 week, I think I was making like $450 every 2 weeks working at the spa at the front desk. And then 1 week, I made $450 doing photo shoots. So I told the manager, and I was like, hey, I made just as much money doing photo shoots as I did working here. And she was like, oh, I don't doubt it at all. You're amazing. So that just gave me more confidence. Like, okay, wait, I could do this as a career eventually. And then that just gave me the belief.
You didn't look back. It kind of took on a life on its own. And you got the feedback from people that you were producing a good work product, and you took that path.
100%. I stopped going to class because it just didn't make sense to me. I'm like, why can't I could do this as a career. I don't need. So I literally dropped out of school, moved up to Tampa for a film opportunity. And like ever since then, I didn't look back. But how that opportunity came about was I told myself I want to do, because soccer. So I want to do Nike, Adidas. I would love to shoot for those companies. So I drove up to Tampa one day from Fort Myers, 2 hours, did a free photo shoot for a girl that was preparing for a fitness competition. And I said, hey, buy some Nike outfits. I can do, this fitness content. Did the photo shoot. Week later, someone that used to play in the NFL reaches out and is like, hey, I love the content you did with Sarah. Do you travel for photography? So then I was like, okay, I didn't do the shoot for free. It was an investment because now people saw my work. And then I got hired from that. So I just put 2 to 2 together. Like sometimes you got to go out of your way, but it's not for free. It's just an investment.
So school was done for you as far as you were concerned, because this kind of took hold of you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you've been in the business for 8 years? Oh, well, probably longer because you started in college. So how long have you been in the business?
8, 9 years, but like my business, probably like 4 or 5 years.
Okay. So you were in sports all your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was in sports growing up all my life too, and sports taught me about discipline, period. So whatever venture we go into, no matter what in life, discipline is part of it. I mean, it is, period. I don't care what anybody says. You have to be disciplined if you want to move forward in a task or whatever you're trying to do, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur, especially if you're going to take that risk to take on a career or follow your passion with nothing to fall back on, really.
Mm-hmm.
So talk a little bit about how growing up, seeing your dad as a pro soccer player, traveling and doing all those sports, how do you think that may have helped you in developing to be a young, successful entrepreneur?
It helped a lot because, in soccer, if we were late to practice, you have to do sprints after. So you're already just like, I'm already ingrained in my mind. Like I get anxiety if I'm running late. Like even here today, I was like, damn, I don't want, even if I'm 3 minutes late.
Yeah, you kept texting me.
Yeah. So that's just like ingrained in me. I remember in the morning, my dad he would never let me sleep in past 8 in the morning because he wanted me to be productive. So just having that mindset, he would always tell me, there's other kids all over the world training. Like, did you get in your reps today? Just always, there's someone out there that might be working harder than you. And then in college, just like we would have to get up at 6 a.m. and then you'd have class and you'd have to do all these things and you'd have to make sure your grades are right or else you can't play. So all those things I feel like came together. So now when I'm doing photography, I still keep those same morals, those same
traits.
Exactly.
Yeah, you need those traits to be successful. You learned about consequences at a young age,
mm-hmm.
And having to be accountable for yourself and for your clients. And they see that. I mean, that's how it is in life. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter where you are with your career. If you're not accountable, you're not going to continue on in the career that you're in. So I think that's a really good point.
I would say also too, like just every time I would step on the field, our coaches would always tell us, you never know who's watching. There could be college scouts there. Because I was at a time like, in the United States, you go to high school, you go to college, and, how you play in high school and club soccer, you're going to get recruited by different universities, potentially get a scholarship. So you always go into each game like wondering, okay, There could be someone in the crowd watching that could, give me an opportunity to go play in Europe or in South America. So every game was just a new opportunity. So with photography, it was the same thing. It was like every potential photo shoot was a new opportunity. I didn't care who it was. I just looked at it like, okay, one, I can make an imprint on that person. And then two, they obviously know people too. So as long as I make a good impression and do great work, more things are going to manifest for me in the future. I kept that mindset.
How did you teach yourself how to use the camera, to learn about lighting, to learn about how to coach people? Because it's definitely an art form, and I've come to know it, obviously through you, especially getting comfortable in front of the camera, developing content, having good conversations, being authentic. How did you develop your skills?
There's a lot of different ways. I remember I was in my dorm room just Googling on YouTube, ISO, aperture, shutter speed. How do those three things work together? Once you understand those three elements, you can shoot manual. So you can control the lighting with your camera, which gives you more capability essentially. But I just went out of my way to learn. And there's actually a funny story. When I was living in Fort Myers, I had to do a photo shoot or a video shoot, commercial, like a corporate shoot for a medical company. And we needed to rent lighting. So I reached out to my friend. I was like, hey, do you know where we could rent lighting? And he was like, oh, there's this legend cinematographer. His name is Flip. He lives in Fort Myers. So he sends me his address. We go to pick up the lighting. His house was on the same street that I was living on. The house that I was living in Fort Myers, I had moved to like Fort Lauderdale and then moved back there a year later. And I had no idea that he lived on that same street that I lived on a year prior. So now that I'm back there, I go to pick up the equipment, literally walking distance on the same street. And he taught me how to set up a C-stand. Like the C-stand is the stand that you put the light on so the light doesn't fall over. He took it out of his garage, set it up in his driveway. So I would go to his house every Sunday and he would just teach me stuff. And he's like in his late 60s, worked in Hollywood. We would sit in his living room. He would give us beers. He would put on this old black and white movie and just talk to us about the history of cinematography. Because I didn't know about all those things, like the old cinematographers and directors that he grew up on. So being around people that were way more experienced than I was, like
He was your mentor.
He was my mentor. And then I think from, living in Germany, going to different countries, being in an environment where English wasn't the main language, that helped me to develop like communication, appreciation for like other cultures, other people, knowing the right questions to ask, because at the end of the day, like that's all people want to do is connect. And, you have to ask questions to connect with people. And being in an environment where you're different can be very humbling, especially from the United States, because we're so used to like people coming to visit the US. But when you travel abroad, you really develop and learn how to connect with people. And I think all those things came together to lead me where I'm at now.
You're more disarmed when you go to a foreign country. Like you said, you have to connect differently. Mm-hmm. You come in there basically with a blank slate. But the comment you made, I want to go back to with regard to your experience with your Fort Myers friend. You obviously developed a love and passion for the historic aspect of the career that you're in. I mean, which, you hear Mike Tyson talk about all the old boxers and how he had such a love for all the old boxers and just an appreciation of what they went through and what they did, which sounds like you really grew that through the knowledge that you learned from this guy who took you under his wing.
Yeah, it was. My mom always told me, there's people above you can learn from and people below you that you can help. And I felt like I just knew if I wanted to grow, I needed to be around people that knew more than me. And meeting him was just a blessing. Like,
I think there's so many levels of that for people in general, no matter where they are in their career, whether you're a beginner or you're a seasoned veteran doing something. You can always learn from somebody so long as your eyes are open and you're listening, right? And even your trek to Germany, where you were observing people and the culture, you have an innate ability to take in things, and you can somehow filter them to a point where you're able to utilize that skill set to disarm whoever you may be filming, to get them to speak and get them to come out of their shell. It is an art, like I said earlier. But the reason why I think you're successful in what you do is because you're in tune with the human element. In other words, you are a keen observer of people, and you're trying to get them from point A to point B, sometimes in spite of themselves, right? Mm. And we talked about it off camera, about this idea of people in general having more anxiety itself of getting on camera than when they're actually doing it, where they won't even realize they're doing it. And then all the anxiety is gone.
Like when I would be in soccer practice, I remember one of my coaches, Coach Garth, he was from Trinidad. And after practice, we would have to do fitness. We'd have to run and do suicide sometimes. And I remember walking to the line and thinking about, damn, we have fitness. The thought of it was always worse than actually in the moment running. Like walking up to the line, knowing you're about to be super tired in a few seconds. That always was the hardest part. Once you start running and stuff, it's like, you're good. And I think with being on camera, it's the same thing. Like before the cameras turn on, you're normal. And then but you're thinking about like, oh, like is my skin looking good? Or is my outfit right? Or like, how does my hair look? All these different things come into mind when, they don't have to. But with practice and repetition, like it becomes better. And I think the key is to find the value in it and realize that your conversations are going to impact and touch somebody. And when you keep that in mind versus like being self-conscious, I feel like it becomes easier, and you realize like, hey, there's famous actors that that are ugly, that aren't attractive, or that might be super overweight, but they're on camera funny, silly, doing embarrassing things, and they don't mind. So why can't we just do the same thing, and be ourselves?
It's so true. I think people get paralyzed by their own analysis, and it happens in life in general. It'll happen in the business industry. It'll happen with people when, they want to launch something. We talked earlier about that as well, wanting to get everything perfect before they launch a new business or a podcast. I mean, I remember even me, before we launched initially, I couldn't wait to get out there and do it. But more than anything was kind of like leaning into the uncomfortable in the beginning for me, because I was interested in testing myself and seeing if I could step into the new world, the young world that you're in. And with this podcast, basically, as an almost 60-year-old. And I've never had so much fun, not only being surrounded by you guys and girls that are able to help me grow and learn something new, but just I get inspired. But let me get back a little bit to you and how your career has progressed, because as far as I'm concerned, I think that you're on this trajectory where you're going to really continue and kill it as you grow in this industry.
Thank you. Real quick though, the reason why I feel like you offer a new perspective, your demographic, there's more people in my age group making content than your age group. So I feel like you offer like that big brother, like that uncle, that father figure to a lot of men out there. Maybe they don't have that, but you're putting out content that can help those people, like the Mike Rasheeds, like people that are like a little bit older but making content. You guys have the credibility immediately because you've been through everything, really. And I think, a lot of people look at 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds like, oh, like, what are you going to tell me on relationships and stuff, or all these different things? But someone that has experience like you and your wisdom, that people aren't going to question what you're saying.
Yeah, a lot of battle scars that would warrant the credibility. You're right. That's a good point. I appreciate that. I think that you're right in that there aren't many people in this space doing podcasts that are my age. In fact, when I talk to peers in my age group, they look at me like I have two heads, and then they're like, "What are you doing? Well, how are you doing that?" And some people have interest in it. Some people are inquisitive about it. But for me, you know, I had to lean into it because I just had this spark and this desire to enter this new world. And I am finding, especially through talking with you and us doing content together and then posting, and even though we're just, you know, it's the first season we're doing this, and we're going to keep it up. We're learning so much as we go through it, and we are reaching people, which is great. And we don't have any expectations of anything at this point. We're just doing our thing, which even makes it more enjoyable, I think. But I will say that I have noticed, whether it be on Instagram and the posts, where I do get a little frustrated by people posting things. For example, I see these young kids posting videos on workouts and exercises, and I'm looking at these kids and I'm like, are you kidding me? You know, you're going to teach somebody how to basically hurt themselves doing this stuff, or the references to steroids, or just a lot of dysfunctional content out there. And they have 1 million followers or 500,000, however they have, whatever they're doing. I mean, it's a medium, obviously, that can reach so many people. I like the platform because I can reach the unknown, right? You don't even know who you can reach. And what you did for me, which I think kind of helped not necessarily validate, but kind of reinforce what we were doing, is that you shared this thought that there's value to some of the things I've been through, and that people would, in fact, want to learn or listen to some of the things we've been through. You know, whether I was at my bottom with regard to, you know, my career and my personal life, and sharing and being raw about how I had to extricate myself out of that particular issue, and then partnership with my wife, and how that was able to help elevate me, and talking about how having a partner is crucial to one's success, and how that could hurt if the partner isn't, you know, supportive. So you did do so much more than just film. I think it's important to bring that point up, because I think as anybody who's listening to this podcast or watching has a desire to go through the podcast route or set up a YouTube channel, they need to surround themselves with people like you who are able to be more than one-dimensional with regard to your role. And again, it goes without saying how thankful I am that you're involved with us, as I am with, you know, so many others. But yeah, I really am. And that's why I really wanted to have you on the podcast, because I know that you could motivate and help a lot of young, and maybe even some older ones, because you're kind of an old soul in some respects.
I feel that way.
Yeah, I really do. I think you're like an old soul, because some people get, you know, lost among themselves with trying to be everything for everyone.
I think creating content is almost like therapy. It's like a path of self-internalization, because you have to overcome certain fears to be comfortable showing yourself to the world. Because as soon as you put out the content, people are going to judge you. They might say negative things. More than likely, there's going to be positive things that people say. Like, there's going to be more positives than negatives, you know, more than likely. But you're still putting yourself out there to be judged, to be criticized. And it takes self-love to be comfortable doing that and not being afraid. And then realizing like, hey, I do have value to offer, and realizing maybe I just affect one person with that video that I posted, but that one person that you affected, like, it's going to come back to you. Like, keeping that thought in your mind, I feel like, is how you can stay focused with it.
The vulnerability aspect of being in the industry, being on a podcast or doing something like this in this space is crucial. It's also the vulnerability aspect in relationships. I mean, we can take that on. That could be a separate podcast that we could do, in allowing yourself to be real to whoever you're with. That's the only way a relationship's going to work. And if that person doesn't accept you for who you are, and you're not willing to grow within, I mean, I'm not saying accept all the negative things. You need to be able to work through, you know, self-recognition with regard to whatever issue you may be dealing with, as long as you're willing to grow. I'm not the same person I am now that I was 10 years ago. And I'm not the same person now that I will be 10 years from now. But I hope to be better. I hope to grow and be a better version of myself. And this podcast has a way of helping me along that journey. And you made a great point. For a lot of people, that's what it does. So long as they maintain the authenticity of themselves and what they're trying to accomplish with whatever topic
That's the key.
they want to cover. I had heard some type of percentages regarding podcasts, that there's like 2 million or so podcasts out there, of which 80 or 90% of them only do 1 or 2 episodes and they're done with the podcast. And so it's like a one and done type thing. And then the percentage is even less and less for people who have done more than 5 or kept on. And people in today's society also seek they want immediate gratification. They want like everything done yesterday. And that's not how it's going to happen. That's not going to happen with content. That's not going to happen with podcasts. That doesn't happen in life, period. You got to work hard to get whatever, you may want. So it's something that I think people have to recognize, whatever space they're in, whether it be in their career, whatever plans they may have in regard to social media and platforms in general.
I think that's just goes to like the team, the company you keep, the people you have around you. Putting the right team together, you're going to have that motivation. When you might feel a little down and unmotivated, you have that team there that's going to help you to push through that. A lot of people are trying to do it all by themselves, and that's where you can get burnt out, or you can get discouraged, or you see a negative comment and you're like, I'm not going to film today. But when you surround yourself with the right people, like for me, whenever I was around people, I would always see their best traits. And I think I was just projecting myself. Like I would tell people, hey, you could model, or hey, you could have your own TV show, or oh, you could be a chef, you cook really well. Because I would always look inside and see those things in me. So whoever I was around, I would, motivate them, and because that's what I wanted. I like people around me that are going to hype me up and motivate me. And if you're not around people that aren't doing that, like maybe you shouldn't be around them. Not that they have to like always toot your horn, but the people around you should be looking at you like, yo, you're someone special.
You nailed it. You don't want to be around negative people. You want to be around people that are going to help elevate you. Obviously, you're going to have common interests with the people you want to surround yourself with. A long time ago, my father told me, birds of a feather flock together. He used to tell me that, show me one of your friends and I'll tell you who you are. And I didn't really understand that until I was a little older, because at the time I remember as I was a youth, I would hang out with some kids who maybe didn't have my interests at heart, maybe doing some things they shouldn't be doing. And they got in trouble, then I would get in trouble. And now when I think back about it, or as I got a little older, I recognized that. And I've always been so keenly aware of that particular modeling behavior for me. And it wasn't an issue of being snobby or not wanting to be around people unless it was beneficial to me. I didn't view it that way. I viewed it along the lines of bettering myself and moving forward with regard to whatever my goals were. And if this individual, you're going to laugh with a buddy, there's always a goofball or somebody who does something that's silly, crazy. But I remember getting actually uncomfortable when certain people in the group would go to a level that I thought was a little too much. And I didn't really want to be part of that. I could actually think back growing up. I remember instances specifically, and you probably do too, where you saw that there'd be a group and there'd always be 1 or 2 that would go to a different place that you were like, man, I'm not going there. Whatever it was, whatever they decided to do. And as I grew in my career, I had to make tough decisions. And those decisions included who I wanted to surround myself with.
That's true.
And I always wanted to be around people who were growing and inspiring me, like you said, and not kissing my ass, but, had common interests in mind, were aspiring to do the same things. That's how we grow. And I wanted to learn from these people. I always loved talking to the older people, loved it, because the older people, like you say with me, I give a different perspective being older, because it's experiences, right? Whatever it may be. You can't judge somebody, right? You don't know. But if they share these little experiences, and if you take just one little piece of sand from that beach, from that person, and you take it with you and it helps you. And then you do that again with somebody else and somebody else. That's how wisdom is is developed, right?
It's so true, because I remember when the first fitness facility I was filming at when I left Florida Gulf Coast University, I was there for like 8 months, and there was internal conflict there's like a merger happening, and I wanted to leave. And one of the owners wanted me to stay. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, because he told me, he was like, oh, I have your best interest in mind. And I thought to myself, like, how do you have my best interest in mind? You've never asked me what my goals are, what I want to do. And I think that's always the first question I ask someone when I'm working with them. Is like, so what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? Because once I know your goals and what you're trying to accomplish, then I can always have your best interest in mind for whatever we're doing. And I think that's the key, is like the people that are around you, like pay attention to the questions that they ask you. That to me is super crucial. Like, are people asking you for advice? Are they asking you, things about your experiences? I think the questions that people ask you will just tell you everything.
Oh, sure. If people want to be interested. Yeah. They're engaging. You took me to a thought that I'll share from a legal perspective. I've been practicing law over 30 some odd years. I've trained lawyers. I've managed multiple offices. I've done a lot of different things. One of the biggest challenges I had in my career with lawyers who you would think are, educationally smart, some have been practicing for many years in different areas, is getting them out of the weeds. And what I mean by that is, at the end of the day, what are they trying to accomplish? So if you're representing a client for whatever particular reason, okay? So say it's a slip and fall and they got hurt. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, you want to either have a jury award them a certain amount of money or get them, whatever they may need medically, whatever it may be. So there's an end goal in mind. I can't tell you how many thousands of lawyers get lost in the weeds and don't recognize that there's an end game in mind. And so if you could take that airplane view of what's going on in life, whether it be in the law practice, whether it be in the business practice, whether it be in a relationship practice, you're ahead of the game. You're ahead of the majority of people in life, because you are recognizing not only that your time is valuable, but you have focus and clarity with regard to your goals and what you want to do. So that's so key to life's engagement with people. And it's, again, not to be filtering out and only wanting to like step on the ladder of success and just use people. It's essentially trying to filter out and getting quality individuals that help build you up as a human being and as a successful business person.
Exactly. 100%. For me, like, I always paid attention to how I felt in certain moments. Like when I was living in Germany, I had to take a German speaking class 4 days a week. But there was one other girl that was from the United States in the class. And the professor was German, and she only taught in German. She didn't speak English. And I just remember how refreshing it felt being able to like leave class and go eat with another American person. And we spoke English. And I remember that feeling. So I was like, it made me like, dang. So like all the foreign people that come to the United States, maybe they don't speak English. I can now feel how they felt. Maybe they don't feel comfortable in school because they can't speak English well, but then they're around their friends that maybe speak Spanish. They feel at home and more comfortable. So I felt that when I was in Germany. So now directing and doing content with people, I feel like all those experiences play a part in just like how I'm acting when I'm around people or the questions I ask or whatnot.
So it must validate then when you see people where they're not necessarily being cliquey intentionally. Like if somebody speaks only, one language, it's that there's comfort.
Exactly.
In that,
exactly.
Right? And you experienced it first. So what brought you to Germany? I didn't even get to that discussion point.
Soccer. It was in soccer, you either play college soccer or you go straight pro. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go straight pro. A month prior to moving to Germany, I sprained my ankle. So the recovery process I had to use crutches for 2 weeks, but I didn't want to miss out on this opportunity. But I was only like 70% when I went to Germany. It was like 20 degrees for two 2 months, January, February, that's when I moved there. So it was tough because I wasn't 100%, and the level of soccer there was already like higher than what I was at. So it was tough. And then after 6 months, I came back and played college soccer.
So how old were you in Germany?
18 when I moved.
Oh, wow. All by yourself?
Yeah, well, I lived with the family. He was actually one of the coaches at the club that I was at, and he was American. So I stayed with them. They had a basement bed, and I stayed there for 6 months. So it was tough, though. Like, I got homesick. You know, I would go on long walks sometimes because I was like, sometimes didn't know what to do, but that experience was still amazing.
Oh, yeah. I bet it was. So you were in there 6 months, and then you came back, and then you went back to school?
Went to the University of South Florida for a year, and then I transferred to Florida Gulf Coast.
Oh, okay. So there's a term for that. What type of student was that? Were you kind of like a
student athlete?
Yeah, well, you were a student athlete, but in a foreign country, because they do it here in the States too with people, right?
Foreign exchange
student, kind of.
Except I was.
But you were almost pro, or was it pro at that time?
It was the level right before pro.
Yeah, because you wouldn't be able to play college, right? If you back then, if you got paid.
Yeah, if you got paid and signed a contract, you couldn't play college, but I had to take that German class in order to have a visa so I could stay longer than like 90 days or something. Gotcha. So that was the whole purpose. But it helped a lot. I learned a lot of German.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. I want to cover something else because, I think it's important with regard to the spheres of people that you've surrounded yourself with. Case in point, we filmed a couple weeks ago. You brought in another great guy, videographer, Bo, that came in and did some filming. We're here today. You bring in another guy, Alan, who does podcasts as well. You brought on Noel, who's helping us out with social media content. You've created a network, whether it was intentional or unintentional. You've created a network for yourself. Tell the listeners and the viewers a little bit about how you went about doing that, if you can.
So I just remember my first month that I made $1,000 through photography. I told my mom, I was like, I made $1,000 in 1 month because, mind you now, I'm like just getting out of college. So that was real big for me. And I just started to realize like these bigger productions they might be spending $10,000 or $20,000 or 100, 6 figures for commercials and stuff. I realized there's a lot of people on set that are filming. So I kind of reverse engineered it. I'm like, well, let me take the time to meet and find other talented people that do what I do. So when that opportunity comes with that $10,000 budget, $20,000 budget, I know exactly who I'm going to hire. I'm going to hire Alan. I'm going to hire Matt for sound. I'm going to hire Jan to DP. I'm going to rent equipment from Roberto. Like I have all these people in my mind. I know makeup artists. Like I know 5 people in makeup artists, from a producer, from a director, from an editor. Because I knew, okay, once I know all the people, I'll be able to manifest the opportunity. So when the opportunity comes, I'll be ready. Like there was one opportunity I had, and I had to get insurance to get a permit. So I had to make a bunch of phone calls and jump through hoops and ladders just to be able to do the shoot. And I knew one day I wanted to make a feature film. I want to make a movie, and you don't do that alone. So I need to learn and meet, people that are talented and passionate. So when I am ready, I can recruit all those people. Maybe even they might want to just do it for fun to help out too. So I took it upon myself like, okay, I can't just be creating great content. I need to do the sales and network and provide opportunities to people in my network. So I took it upon myself, like it might be a $5,000 shoot and I could maybe do it myself, but let me bring on someone else and pay them. Like the first time we're interacting, I tried to pay people to where like, okay, if I'm around Cam, I know I'm going to maybe make some money or have a great experience. So I always tried to like be that person. Like I remember I was working for a media agency here, in a marketing agency called Brand Monkey. And the owner, this was after COVID, the owner needed a new account manager because the person she had was leaving. I was in a coffee shop one day. I saw 2 girls on their laptops working, and one of them had Photoshop open. So I went up to them. I was like, hey, introduce myself. I was like, what do you guys do? Do you guys do graphic design? And they're like, yeah, we do social media management. And I was like, oh, well, the agency I'm working for is actually looking to hire a new assistant. you should follow me on Instagram, reach out to her. So she did. I go out of town. I get back a week later. I get to the office. She's in the office because she got hired.
Did you get a finder's fee?
No, I didn't. I didn't get a finder's fee. But like, I always like connecting with people and trying to connect the dots and just be of value. Like even Noelle, like she impressed me with her skill set. I saw you needed that. And boom, I was able to plug her in right away. And I think I always try to take that approach. I didn't want to just be someone that's great with the camera or that can edit well, because I don't want to always hold the camera. I think one day I can, produce, and I wanted to set myself to where like maybe there's a shoot in Miami and I can't be there, but I could get 4 people together that are super talented and they could do the shoot, and maybe I make a certain percentage of the shoot by putting it together. So I just kind of, building those networks.
I want to talk a little bit about what you were saying regarding the network and kind of how you created it, because practicing a long time and representing businesses in all different areas in litigation, you basically are like a general contractor. And what I mean by that is you essentially, you could bid on a project not knowing what the project may entail, but you've got people to cover the project. And that happens in industry, period. And it's just a question of somebody having the incentive, having the contacts, having the relationships to be able to put it all together, and then having the guts to be able to bid on something or engage in potentially taking on a job, knowing that they're going to have to fill all those slots within the allotted budget. It obviously takes some experience to know, what you're getting yourself into. And, there may have been times you could share with our listeners or viewers where you got burned. In other words, you took on a deal in the beginning where you thought that it would cost you X. You thought that you'd be able to bring on some people. And unfortunately, you didn't make what you thought you could have made because there was overruns or something happened. But that's a learning experience in and of itself, right?
100%.
So talk a little bit about that.
I would say, even just like to backtrack, like I always wanted to be that person that knew that person, that like someone needed something. It's like, okay, yeah, I know someone I can recommend. And I quickly realized like, wait, I don't have to know how to do everything. But if I know all the people that can do everything or in their specialized field, I could hire them for a specific shoot. But it took trying everything myself first to realize that. Like I studied graphic design, I studied these different, editing, all these different things. So when I needed to hire someone, I had knowledge and I could speak on it in a way that wouldn't allow me to get burned. But there were moments where I kind of tried to do too much and I tried to bring too many people together and I ended up losing money than making money. But just a part of the journey, like that's just a part of it where now. And the people that you work with, they'll respect you. Like you tried to put together a crew. Like I remember I was working on this film series called the Behind series. I brought 2 people together, so it was 3 of us. We partnered together to put this series together. We put a whole plan together. We're like, okay, if we can get $20,000 in funding or sponsorship, we can film the first 6 episodes. And one of the persons had a private investor and she said they put up the money. So cool. I'm hiring like all my friends that I've been working with to be a part of the project. Halfway through the project, the other girl we were working with was like, oh, we're going to have to cut back a little bit. So I had to tell all these guys that are my friends, like, hey, we're not going to be able to film. One of the guys was like, yo, I had already blocked off these dates. I had already said no to a shoot that was paying me like $2,000. So now I'm about to lose $2,000. So I'm over here feeling like shit, like, damn. But then I'm like, damn, like I'm trying to do a good thing and bring everyone together. And now at the end of the day, I'm the one getting burned, even though I'm helping other people get paid. I think it's just like, 1, understanding who you're going into business with. And then 2, just knowing you made a mistake and just admit and apologize. And people will respect you. Like I called everyone. I'm like, yo, I'm sorry. Like, I know you lost some money. Like when I have a new opportunity, I'm going to hire you, blah, blah, blah. And obviously they were upset, but they respected me calling and apologizing. And I think like, that's really the best thing you can do. But that experience just kind of sucked because like,
Well, it's a terrible experience, but it was a good experience. In other words, you learned. I mean, you learned.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you learned what not to do, and it goes to, you know, on the front end when you aspire to do some of the things that you're doing, and for people who are listening to us and watching us, do your due diligence. And what I mean by that is vet out whoever you may be engaged with to make sure that if you're putting your name out there, your reputation, you're vetting your friends to come on, whoever that person may be, to help you in this particular deal. Make sure whoever you're dealing with on the front end is sourced properly so that you don't get egg on your face, so that you don't lose out, because it's a domino effect, right? It affects everybody.
And having the proper paperwork.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have contracts signed, anything like that. So at the end of the day, it's like I could complain all I want, but then it's like, oh, well, did you have a contract? And it's like, oh, no. And then it's like, well, you can only look at yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah. And as a lawyer, yeah, a contract is something you'd always want. But if you're dealing with a startup and there's no money there, you know, and you go to a lawyer's going to want money to even take it. So again, if you do what you need to do on the front end, and you don't get necessarily blinded by the opportunity of something so large. That's the other part. If somebody's dangling a 6-figure deal or a 5-figure deal that you can say, oh, wow, I can make all this money doing this stuff. If it's too good to be true, chances are it's too good to be true. But at the same time, you learn from it, especially coming around and interacting with your network again, and on how to deal with it. And you dealt with it like you should have. And people are taking risks with you as well. There's risk across the board with everybody involved when they take on certain projects. The reason why you are who you are and why you've been able to grow the way you grow and you'll continue to be successful is because you do take it to heart, because you care.
Yeah.
And that care is authentic. Unfortunately, a lot of people aren't like that. They're more or less out for me. But that's why your network will continue to grow, and you'll pay it forward, and people, and it will come in kind. It will come in kind. You just have to, there's always going to be somebody bad out there. There's always going to be an issue out there that you're going to have to deal with. That's life. And you deal with the business structures and the people as it may be. You've actually gone from a couple places, and as we've talked in this podcast, you've gone from behind the scenes, taking still photos, to doing content creation associated with actual film and videos and building up content, working with drones, we didn't even get into, but you do that as well, to moving to develop a network of people in different subject matters, whether it be makeup, whether it be editing, whatever it may be. And now you're on the camera in which people are watching you on the other side. And I know that you have dreams and you have goals in which you said, you may want to write, you may want to do a movie, you may want to do something else, which suggests to me that you continue to kind of build your own book within. Your chapters continue, and you are constantly wanting to learn and grow. Talk a little bit about how that continues on with you and how that's a driving force in your life.
I think a lot of that comes too with the experience and the people that I've came in contact with. So, quick story, when I was working with Antonio Brown, we flew out to Oakland. That same day, I met like some really big tech investors because he went out to a Golden State Warriors game with them. So prior, everyone had dinner. So I met them at the dinner. Like months later, one of the guys that I met was in Miami. He called me. He was like, hey, can you take pictures at my birthday party? So once again, the relationships, like stayed in contact with someone that I met from that relationship. I film his birthday party. I meet someone at his birthday party. A couple months later, that person that I met, I was in like Los Angeles shooting for someone, and he was like, oh, he saw my story that I was in LA. He was like, yo, you should come up to San Francisco and stay here for the weekend. You can stay at my place. We can film. So boom, he buys me a ticket, fly up there, film with him. He just so happens to be like a yogi and studied meditation and all of that. So he taught me like certain meditation practices that he did to like keep his energy at a certain level. So I worked with him for a little bit. And then I think after that is when COVID happened. I was able to like connect the dots of like, I worked with this person, and then from that person I met this person, and that person I met this person, and I saw like it's really just about connecting with people, and different people are going to introduce you to new potential ideas. And then like that's one way to learn, and then obviously you can study on your own and stuff, but I feel like that's really been what's been interesting about, I guess, my journey is all the different people I've met through my camera.
And so with those relationships that you've developed and the people that you've met, you take a little piece of them, you take a little knowledge nugget, so to speak, with that individual, and you sock it away, and somehow it inspires you, right?
Yeah.
And it's inspired you to do other things.
So even now, like being on camera more and speaking, I've started to realize like there's so many different lanes within content. Like you can do content for a client and work with them on a retainer basis, or maybe they need a project done, or educational videos, onboarding videos. There's so many different types of content you could create. But then on the other side, there's the educational side. So teaching people how to create content is a whole nother avenue. So I realized like, well, hey, I've been doing this for a while now. A lot of people reach out to me on Instagram asking like, hey, how do you do certain things? Or what camera did you use? Or how do you get clients? And I started to realize there's a lot of money to be made in teaching people. Like you can make money doing it, and you can make money teaching it. Like you said, you taught people how to become a lawyer, or like guiding them. And then you also have clients that you work with too. So that's what inspired me too, is like, I want to be able to generate revenue online. If I can make money anywhere in the world, that would be awesome, because I love traveling. And
Sure.
one of my best friends does online weight loss coaching. Doesn't train anyone in physical. He's taking calls all day. But I thought that was super cool, because he could be anywhere in the world, take a call, he does coaching. So I'm like, okay, well, I could do the same thing. I'm already doing it. When I realized I was already doing what I wanted to do, and I didn't put a name behind it. Like people say consulting. I never knew like what that was for the longest time. And then I realized it's really just like helping people with strategy, coaching, giving people ideas, like being of value to someone. Maybe not necessarily doing the work for them, but like guiding them along the way.
Well, you segue to my friend who we're going to have on the podcast, who gave me the slap on the back, or he gave me the catalyst. Elliot has a mentorship business. I mean, that's what he does. He's out in the UK, but he's all over the world. And he takes, in part, I'm probably simplifying it, and he's going to laugh if he's listening to this when he's watches or listens to this. But in part, my understanding is that he will take an individual who may be making, $5 million a year in their business and help them grow it to $10 million a year by being the mentor, or having one of his mentors that are under him, analyze the books, analyze what they're doing, check trends. And the fitness industry is one of the areas that he's in as well. Basically, in part, helping people get out of their own way, especially if they have a captive audience, and how to scale it, right? How to grow it. And it creates for you, whatever you're doing, it creates that fluidity of you being able to go anywhere you want, but still get the income and do what you need to do. I love being able to teach somebody something. I think there's a certain feeling that you get being able to impart knowledge to somebody else, and watching them, it's like that light comes on. You can see it in their eyes where they're like, wow, and then, they'll end up doing it to somebody else. I think that's a great, it's like a great form of kind of giving back in a way. You guys don't even realize how much you've taught me through this process in and of itself. And when we did the podcast with Lamar mentioned to me, and I think he said it on the podcast that I'm going to come to Keith on how to set up a podcast. I'm like, you're going to come to me? Well, 6 months, I know what the hell I was doing, People
want to learn from people that have gone through the ringer, that have gone through the experience, that have like failed, because you have that credibility. Like that experience is like, I didn't go to school for photography or video production, but a lot of people ask me for advice and help on certain things. And I learned that through my personal experiences. So it's like, everyone has a different reality, different perspective. You could take something from everybody. It's just being, willing and open to it.
Well, the key to it, I think, in part is also that you have to live it. In other words, you have to experience it. in order, that gives you the credibility. You have to fail. Failure is a part of success. So you have to go through that process, whether it be scary or not. You have to go through the process of failing, making mistakes, learning from those mistakes, growing, and moving forward. It's living. It's part of life. And with that, success will come. You have to remain humble. You have to be able to be a sponge, but also, like I said, filter it in, learn from it, grow, move on. You've kind of figured it out at a young age, which is admirable.
Trying to.
Yeah, and you're continuing. Hey, I'm learning new every day. It's one of those things where I keep my eyes open, and you guys have been great in helping me and patient with me as I go through this process myself, and as we talk to different people and we learn ideas. It's just incredible where we've come to. I know we've had you on for a while. I'm going to finish up. So I just want to close with this one comment and get some feedback from you on it.
For sure.
So you got a kid coming out of college, or you got a kid in high school that aspires to do what you're doing and enter the world of cinematography. What do you suggest they do to get started? What would be some of the first things that you think are mandatory that they need to do, other than maybe getting a camera? But even that, sometimes they think that there's a barrier to entry. I can't afford this, or I can't afford that. What are some of the things? Give me if you can, 3 or 4 suggestions for somebody who's just starting out.
I would say number 1, any opportunity that you can be at, take that opportunity. When I was starting, I was already taking great pictures, but there was a commercial I remember at Florida Gulf Coast University, and I just wanted to be there. I didn't care in what capacity. So they had me as a production assistant. I'm over here running and getting coffee for the crew, running and getting food, doing all these things that people might look at as like lower, or like bitch work or whatever. Like, I remember I went and got the coffee, came back, they're like, oh, this is the wrong coffee. I had to run back to Starbucks, get new coffee, come back. Things that most people maybe couldn't handle with the ego. But I just wanted to be on set and be exposed to these $50,000 cameras and just see it physically. Because I knew once I was around it, like, okay, I know how this feels. I'm listening to how the crew is communicating. They're using terminology that I hadn't heard before. Stuff like that. So
immerse yourself in the setting, whatever it may be. Put your ego in check and get yourself exposure at any level to your passion.
Yeah, at that point in time, do not think about money. Just think about exposure, being immersed around people that are already doing it at the level you want to do it at. That's number 1. Like, be involved, be around people that are already where you want to be. I would say number 2, make sure to have fun. Like, go out and create. Take pictures of your friends. Take pictures of the suns. Go on a long walk and just take pictures of animals. Whatever you can do, but to have fun, go ahead and do that. Like, because that's why you start. Most people don't start a creative thing because they want to make money. They start because they have fun doing it. And then they realize, like, wait, I can make money from this. So you have to make sure you're having fun and trying new things and being curious.
Don't be afraid and enjoy the process. Just make mistakes. It's okay. Take your friends along for the ride. Just experiment and learn from them.
Exactly. And I would say the other thing is those 2 things, like, if you're creating and having fun, people are going to see in your work, like, okay, you're going to be able to tell that this person is having fun. Being curious is going to, like, what I did is I looked at all the people that I thought were talented, and I took little pieces of their work and tried to incorporate that in my work. I tried to copy the people that I looked up to, and eventually I figured out what my style was. So network and be around people that are doing it already, have fun, and then invest in yourself. Like, I remember in college, I had $1,500 to my name. My camera or my lens broke, and I booked a shoot that weekend. So I literally went out and bought a new lens that was like $1,500. So I had no money, did the shoot, got paid. So, like, I invested my last dollar into getting a new piece of camera equipment. So invest in yourself. I remember there was this website called borrowlenses.com, and you could rent a lens for like $50 for 3 days. So in college, I would rent a new lens. Those 3 days, I would hit up everyone I could. Like, hey, can you shoot? Let me do portraits of you if it's a girl, or, you know, some of my teammates. Use that lens, do the shoot. Okay, now I know, okay, 35 millimeter lens, this is the look I'm going to get. 50 millimeter lens, this is the look I'm going to get. So I just would try out these different things. So when I did have the money, I knew exactly what I wanted to buy. And I think those are the keys. Like, invest in your equipment, invest in your knowledge, invest your time by being around the right people, and then have fun at the end of the day, because that's why you started.
Love it. Love it, man. Well, you did a great job. I think you've inspired people. You've inspired me. You continue to inspire me. And you're going to be in with us for a ride. And
hopefully
I want to thank you.
Hopefully I can get that electric Porsche one day. That's
it's coming. Maybe for sale soon, so I don't know. You may get it sooner than later. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Keith.
Everybody, thanks for watching and listening. And remember, keep it pro to pro.
Keep it pro to pro.
That's all for today's episode of Pro to Pro. I hope you enjoyed hearing from our guests and gained some valuable insights into the world of entrepreneurship. Like and subscribe to stay up to date with the latest episodes. And don't forget to follow us on social media. Thanks for watching and listening. And remember to keep it pro to pro.